Hello. Just waiting on folks to arrive. Should be back in a minute. Jazzy J.
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, good. How's
Yeah,
everything?
pretty good, pretty good. Long
Good.
time no see.
I know
Hey, Rick.
It's been a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick, this is my friend Joelle, who's more Geo's friend than mine.
Oh, we all friends. It's good. How you doing, Rick?
And he was in the other book group with us. Do you remember what we read, Joelle, when you were in the book group?
Well, medical apartheid was one of them that I really enjoyed.
Oh,
yeah, that was yeah. And then we did a couple of sci-fis
okay, Parable of the Sower.
Yeah.
Okay, that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wow. So that was medical apartheid was session 3, I believe, of the Global Black Feminists. And now we just finished session 15.
Wow.
So that goes back a ways. Yeah. So it you know Geo's on her way?
Yeah, I think her son was getting ready to head back over back to Italy. So she was on the phone with him. So
oh, okay. So she's coming.
Yeah.
Rick, how you doing? You muted.
I am. How's it going?
Hey there. How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. A little tired. Did a lot of job interviews. That's why I have a shirt on. I had to wake up at 6 to talk to a guy in Manhattan. Of all places, well, it's the end of my line, so it's okay. But yeah.
Are you hiring or are you looking?
I'm looking.
Oh geez. All right. So that's another story.
Oh, it's business as usual. Business as usual.
Yeah.
The free market.
I know the free market very well. All right. Well, we may as well go ahead and get started. And let me welcome everyone to Reading for Change, a collective journey. This is meeting 9 out of meeting 14. So we're probably about 2/3, Joelle, into the book that we're reading. It's the second book Rick and I have read together. And you can learn more about the Reading for Change on YouTube, where all of our archives, video archives are. And we have a Facebook page by that name where we post the events and related materials. Tonight, we are focused on chapter 9, but next week, July 2nd, we're going to do like the first half of chapter 10. And so I did put out a new what do you call it? A new schedule because we canceled last week. So, so I added a week on to the end of it. So tonight the focus is on chapter 9, the Axial Age, 800 BC to 600 AD. And I'm Michelle Odom. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. And my co-host for this series, Rick.
Hey, my name's Rick from Queens, New York.
Queens, New York. And Joelle.
Joel Jones. Most people call me Joel or JJ from.
Now I'm having a hard time hearing you, Joelle.
How about now?
That's better.
Hold up, let me.
Are you talking?
No, I'm not talking. How's that?
It could be a little louder.
Hold on.
Give us your name again.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Joel Jones. Testing 1, 2, 3.
That's good.
Okay. Joel Jones
Okay.
from Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. And Gio, you're muted. You're muted, Gio.
It's Friday. I'm Georgette Moses, and I'm joining you guys from Columbia, South Carolina. Yay!
All right. So let's see. Is this a long summary? No, it's not that long. Okay. Who wants to read?
Okay, looks like I'm stepping up. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Chapter 9, the Axial Age, 800 BC to 600 AD, offers a comparative analysis of what Graeber calls the military-coinage-slavery complex in Greece, India, and China during this historical period. Coins were invented and used widely among ordinary people, and the world's major religions and philosophies were birthed in this 1400-year period of generalized warfare and internal political debate. Freedom from the peasants was never long-lasting. Freedom for the peasants. I'm just messing this all up.
Okay.
Okay.
You aristocrat.
Is that it? That's it. That's the problem. Okay. Freedom from the peasants for the peasants was never long-lasting, and a cycle of debt peonage, debt crises, rebellion, pacification, and debt peonage persisted in these empires. There was a new spirit of rational inquiry in the era of mass literacy, the emergence of mass intellectual movements, and the spread of ideas. This included encouraging a new habit of rational calculation, ideas on profit and materialism, and the emergence of impersonal markets. Axial Age spirituality is built on a bedrock of materialism regarding the physical nature of the world and the human beings in it. In the cash-based ancient world of the Axial Age, war and slavery dominated. together with greed and materialism, but were met with a blossoming of religions and philosophies which endure to this day, as well as social movements demanding peace, justice, and morality. The market, the state, war, and religion all continually separate and merge in this era. However, as religions took hold, they provided glimpses of radical alternatives. Wars became less brutal and less frequent, and slavery faded as an institution throughout Eurasia. Ta-da. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Um, so Joel, do you actually have the book, Joel?
Yes, yes, I do.
Oh, good, good, good. So basically what I've been doing with this group is just kind of starting off the discussion with having everybody say, whatever was striking to them about the chapter. And then most of the time I have some other questions that occurred to me as I was reading the material that we can get
Oh,
to
okay.
later.
Okay, I thought.
So,
Go ahead.
okay,
Well,
go ahead.
I enjoy reading like this, because it's more concrete. I mean, I can,
Mhm.
I can, draw lines in the dirt, and come up with my own kind of stick man kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, thank you for allowing me to. I'm glad to see everyone again. I'm glad to meet you, Rick. Um, I found it very interesting because it's the history of debt, and it just the whole thing just lets you know that you know people just been using people ever since man has written down words, and you always have those four entities: religion, politicians, business, and war. It's always been about that. And one thing that struck me in the reading, if you go back to, the Axial Age to now, is that, you know, all of the, between China, India, and what, other country, the other three of the three,
Greece.
Greece. Um, no matter what the individuals did, as far as coinage was concerned, socially, whether whatever they made for themselves to barter and trade with, always the government got involved. My mind went directly to Bitcoin, you know, how
Mhm.
it was a means of, people, no matter what you think about it, of having their own money free of, banks and, and government oversight and entity. Now what do you see now? The legislation of this
Mhm.
currency or whatever it is. I found that to be interesting. The other point that I would like to make, if you think about the pandemic, and the use of money and currency within every country, you know what I mean. You had some inflation, but you didn't have that much inflation. You had inflation on emergency type things, masks and things of that nature. But
Mhm.
everything else stays pretty much relatively stable, during the time of emergency. Now, as we come out of the emergency, what do you see? You see inflation. We're beginning to trade abroad again, and people are not trusting, their own currency. I mean, the foreign, the dollar, or things are just beginning to rise. In other words, hamsters get ready to get back on the wheel. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? you
Yeah.
know, how the government during the time of the emergency was doling out the money, to people to survive during the pandemic. I found all these things, give me just as, medical apartheid when it came to, how will I treat my body during the pandemic and the vaccine and whatever decisions I would make. I was able to reflect upon, different things in that book. Same thing here. I'll be able to reflect on the usage of coins and military, because I would look at everything in this book, because Geo and I were in the military, so we can see, wartime production and how we pay our armies and the whole 9 yards with that. So I found it very interesting.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about this whole business that you keep hearing about, a shortage of workers after the pandemic. But very little conversation about making the workplace a place people want to come back to, either because you're paying them enough money to do so, or providing the conditions that would be attractive. So, I think you're very much right, Joelle, that when they kept saying, let's get back to normal.
Yeah.
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 And also another thing I saw is, the use of slavery, of slaves, chattel slavery, was all during all of these periods, and hey, the world just looked like it was always been stuck on free and cheap labor. You know what I mean? And it kind of like, let you make me think about several different things. Why do we have war? And the purpose of war, empire building, past and present. The empire building, I mentioned the Geo the other night. It kind of make me think about, okay, why is it advantageous to keep the northern and southern hemisphere to the south of us poor? Okay, there's a reason for that. The reason is, my opinion is, if you're worried about eating, you can't raise an army against me. From an empire building standpoint, it makes perfect sense. From a moral standpoint, it may not. Then I talk about, say, okay, why are we in Afghanistan? So I looked it up. In Afghanistan, in Afghanistan, they have $1 to $3 trillion in minerals. $1 to $3 trillion. They have 1,400 mines. They have coal, copper, gold, iron ore, gems, salt, sulfur, talc, zinc, gemstones. They have all of this. So why have we been there for 20 years? Why was Russia there for 20 years? So you think about, the mining of the coins. They needed that labor. They still need that particular labor. Then, so is the mineral. So you think about, in modern times, and even in Vietnam, why did we go to Vietnam? It was slavery. I went to a place to buy a stoop. I think Men's Warehouse or Brooks Brothers, one of them. So what do I see in the collar? Vietnam. You understand what I'm saying? Vietnam. So still, the slavery still exists. I think at any time in the world history, in any time, every day of the world, there's 30 million people in some type of slavery. 30 million around the world. So.
Rick, Geo?
Well, we're talking about people not going back to work. What's worrisome is that coinage allowed to buy people because it gave, it was originally a way to tell the army we're far from home. There are no resources. You can pillage here. We promise you, I owe you, me the king, this amount of whatever goods you want. However, If you're not satisfied, there is something you can pillage here, women, children, and also if you want to be sadistic and have fun with the elders. So war is not only is a way to drive poor people against other poor people, and poor people who are generally without a family. If you want to be a star, go to the army or become a terrorist, you'll be in history. And you will have an adventure that those normies back home with families don't. And slavery, you know, remember at the beginning of the book, it was about the family relationships can be oppressive, but they don't involve slavery per se. Slavery is with people outside, people you don't trust. And something that really worries me is that the more we're moving forward, the more we're ignoring the fact that human beings are not as good as artificial intelligence when we honestly calibrate it. I work with it. No, we're not. I mean, if you can calculate the rotation of a galaxy in 2 minutes, call me. And the problem is that it's starting to do in the useless jobs that are out there, useless because even if they're paid well, they don't create true value. It's just speculation. Wall Street, as well as consulting in general and whatnot. AI is coming over. So the problem is that the salary, I learned that the minimum wage in Kentucky, or was it Tennessee, for restaurant workers, service workers, is $2 an hour, and they have to make their tips. And it hasn't evolved since the 70s, and that's legal. In a world like ours, I know sometimes you say, oh, this is slavery, and people get upset, but think about it. You said there were 30 million slaves in the world, but when you think about it, everybody producing an iPhone, they're told you have a salary, but since we're giving you an opportunity, we in the sweatshop in India or China, we are paying for your education. What, really? So you have to work 12 hours a day, child, for 20 years. We won't pay you. And by the way, you need to rent your bed. They did the same thing with the railroad in America. That's slavery. A salary, when it becomes too small to sustain life, you are in slavery. Slavery, of course, you can go home, but that's not true in America, because once you're done with your 3 jobs, your child got into trouble at school, cops came up, there's a bail. You got to pay, otherwise your child stays in jail. But if you don't pay, you default payment on your mortgage. If you pay, you default payment on your mortgage, so you lose your house. But if you lose your house, you're no longer allowed for these, tickets for food or whatnot. This is a system that has, the master is no longer a human being. This is the brilliancy of this horrible new form of slavery. The system works on its own. It is automatized. In the past, an enslaver, that means he can get killed through a slave revolt. What if slaves look like they're making their choice? And I'm not talking about everybody having a job. I'm really talking about these people working their asses off and still ending broken. I'm not saying broken. Losing their family, their child to, children growing in environments where they can go on vacation during summertime. I was one of those children. You hang out with the wrong crowd, you start drugs. And then you want to be tough and you want to make money for your mom. So, and you see your mom getting humiliated, so you want to buy a gun. You want to be a tough guy, but you're 14. It's not slavery. It's something, it should have a new word, but it's something that borrows from slavery. A lot.
Sharecropping. It's basically, you become a sharecropper. They got it. They have it in every industry across. No, in this country, say for instance, if you want to be a truck driver, they don't pay you, and they say, "Oh, buy your truck." But what they're really doing is leasing your own truck, sharecropping. You know what I mean? They have it where, and I looked at something. I looked at something else in the book. It says that, I think it was in India, slaves hireling were mostly convicts rented by the state during their terms. So let's go back to the 13th Amendment, which they said freed the slaves. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime where the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States and its territories. So there's a movement in the United States by the Republican Republican senator to change the 13th Amendment and remove that, as it should be. You know, you know what I mean. So right in the Constitution, where they so supposedly freed us, they left the door open for black codes, okay, and Jim Crow to enslavement. So that's what they did. You know, they have chain gangs. You know, and not only that, another part of that is the probation system. You know, that they use in the United States. We're gonna let you out. You know, and what we're gonna do while you're out, you're gonna go work, and you're gonna bring fees back to me because I'm your your probation officer.
Yep, you need to pay me.
What kind of damn system is that? You know, so you know, and so I taught this class in criminal justice while I was gone. You know, I did a little online teaching, and thank God they didn't. Me and my brother have a saying. You know, it's like one day they're gonna figure out I'm a fraud, but they didn't. I got away with it. So, recidivism rate. So if I give you a 20-year sentence, I, lock you up in 2010 at 40,000 a year, and I'm using you for, to print, to make socks or whatever. And then guess what? Well, you know what? If I let you loose in 10 years and let you out there and then I lock you back up at 55K, guess what I can do per year? I can reduce my beds, get rid of some guards, push up profits. Same thing. Well, we have the same thing. I read that, we used to have, it used to be approximately in the early 1980s, I want to get it right, about 140,000 African American males who were in prison. In 2007, it was like 530,000. Look at that.
Well, technically, there are more now. There are about 8 million inmates, state and federal prisons alike, who are African American. 80% for minor offenses, but like you said, there's the cycle. Can't pay bail, then you can't go back to your mother's because she's in the projects, and you can't have somebody who was convicted and the projects, so you're homeless, but you're not supposed to be homeless because you were supposed to get a job and so on and so on. So go back to jail. And right now, when you think about it, there are more African Americans in jail than there were slaves during the entirety of the Civil War. So you're like, okay, it's just it mutates. The way it works is that you look at in my other country, in France, we had maybe 5 revolutions, lots of heads chopped off. We still burn cars. The same families govern. We realized that one guy here, like Chirac, used to be a socialist, and then he met Bernadette, who would become his wife. But nobody knew until late that Bernadette is the niece of the Cunning, a marshal of the army who liberated parts of France, very prestigious. But the Cunning himself, his family dates back to almost the Middle Age, but they were landlords. It's always the same people. And the beauty of it is to look at the communists, Trotsky, Lenin, and also the French, Robespierre. They are high class. None of them are from the low classes of society. They're and it involves a lot of them. When you read them, you realize it involves a lot of personal frustration. They use the poor as a way to say, since I can't be part of the system that I'm supposed to be part of, I'm going to use the poor they hate against them to be part of that system and become the dictator. And this everlasting frustration, you see that in the Axial Age, the idea of prestige, honor, power. In Greece, they made Socrates drink poison because he went to these very rich kids and spent his time telling them, you don't know anything. They were saying, oh, this is justice. Justice is the might of the strong. And Socrates would just turn their minds around, and the parents complained. That's why he got executed. Well, he got executed. He got a chance out. But Socrates, he asked them, what do you want us to give you as a punishment? So Athens used to do that in tribunals, and people would cry and say, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please, I'm so bad. Help me, I have children. And Socrates didn't say that. He said, okay, the crime has to be proportional the punishment has to be proportional to the crime. So since I educated people and raised them beyond superstition, I think I deserve a full year at a luxury equivalent of a hotel back then with prostitutes, wine, dance. I think I need that punishment. So they killed him. They killed him. He was trying to be clever. But so what I'm saying is, in the Axial Age, people have no humor. And I think religions and all these things appear because a lot of people are shocked by how normal this is all. And some sensitive people come. Remember how Buddha starts. He's a prince. And one day he escapes to the palace and sees death, disease, and an elderly man. And he said, what life is a lie, like a spoiled brat who becomes a nihilist emo for a while. And you look at Jesus Christ, same story. He's considered a mixed race. He's not pure Jewish, because he's from the north. He was really, and the Good Samaritan parable was hated by Hebrews, because this idea that a stranger could be purer than a Jew was not acceptable in the Axial Age. Like the Greeks, the Athenians, nationalism is a big part of the Axial Age. Me. Athens, they were like, we're the best. Sparta sucks. Sparta, like, we're the best. They suck. Common enemy. We rule together. 20 years later, you suck again in war.
Yeah, it sounded very familiar. Dio,
Yeah.
what was striking for you?
Well, the fact that he says these different religions and philosophies kind of sprung up at the same time, and unfortunately have not changed much since that time. Okay, well, what do they all have in common? Or were they co-opted by government forces to support the theme, the running theme of slavery now, freedom in the afterlife?
Yeah.
They did corrupt the message. Think about it. Originally, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Zarathustra, Socrates, even, let's not make differences between religion and philosophy here. Lao Tzu, what do they all say? The material world is, in a way or another, an illusion, or not all that there is. And we should not focus on that all the time and sell your children and have sex with everybody in the name of money. And then like you said, Gio, what governments did was like, wait, how can we use that? At first, let's kill them. They're revolting. And it's unpopular. Oh, wait, they're right. The material world sucks. Oh my God, you should not be wealthy. The wealthy are miserable. They'll go to hell. This guy who raped your wife and pillaged your village, don't worry, he's going to hell. You stay put. Just work. Be a good person. Obey. It's brilliant because there is no afterlife. So I'm not saying that but if you think about it, there's not the afterlife they're promising, because heaven, as it's promised, not in the Quran, not in the Bible, there's no description. But the way they describe it later is all the pleasures you were denied here, you'll get them later. I don't see how it makes you pure to want the earthly possessions in heaven, but that's how they sell it. They never sell it in the sense of your soul will be neutral, you won't remember your past life, and you'll become one with the internal. Nobody wants that. They want, can I have virgins and wine and bread and cheese? Yeah. But not now. That's for the bad people now. It doesn't make any sense, but it worked.
Well, I was struck with Buddhism, which I must admit I didn't know that much about, but they seem like a pretty cool religion for bankers, don't it? Where they say it is one of the few of the great world religions that's never formally condemned usury. So it seems like those cats, they got the best of both worlds if they go to Buddhism. But,
Yes.
Well, and that's why in Japan, China, where you have, or Korea, not paying your debt is bad karma. And if you engage into a debt, the idea of Buddha is that you should not engage in debt from the start, but you are. So now you need to go through with it. Otherwise, you have bad karma. And but you know, it's strange because Buddhism was a way to liberate from Hinduism and the idea of that if you don't obey, you'll become a cockroach in an afterlife. And Buddha was like, no, we always evolve towards something greater. The suffering is the illusion of this world. But yeah, no, Buddhism didn't really work in India. It had success when it arrived in China and Thailand, but not before. It took years. Like it was very unpopular. Like what? And Christianism wasn't popular until the Romans were like, okay, let's make it into something, because it sounded crazy. What? Renounce my earthly possessions? Are you insane? And later on, when you know, even Protestants, well, originally they revolted against this whole idea you could buy your way into heaven, and they attacked the Catholic Church for rightfully so. But then they became the same with Dutch bankers and British bankers. You need to pay your debt. It's a moral obligation. It was no longer God wants you. It was moral obligation. Your human dignity depends upon it. Another name for honor. So it's so odd, you know, like how even Islam. Think about Islam, the only religion without speculation, and that prohibits speculation and interests. They killed the descendants, the ones that Muhammad had designed as his successors. And who killed them? Those that would give birth to the Abbasids, the Quraysh. And the Quraysh were the ones who originally in the Surat are against Muhammad and expel him from Mecca. And you have the Medina and all the great wars that come after, and then they convert. But as soon as he's dead, they turn their backs and kill everybody and make again the Kaaba, what Muhammad didn't want it to be, a business. Right now, you look in Saudi Arabia. I don't know how nobody in the Islamic world didn't go after the Wahhabites. They built a hotel that's super tall that overshadows the Kaaba. I don't understand how terrorists are not there bombing the whole place. Heretic! But no, you know.
Well, let's my internet. I'm getting a message that my internet is getting a little bit unstable, so I might get cut out as frequently happens. So, Rick, I made you the co-host, so you may need to let me back in at some point. But for now, let's look at question 11, and I'll read it. In Cotillia's time, the state paid generous wages to soldiers, but used merchants to charge exorbitant prices for supplies and recommended training prostitutes as spies. Thus was the market economy born of war, gradually taken over by government. Rather than stifle the spread of currency, the process seems to have doubled and even tripled it. The military logic was extended to the entire economy, with granaries, trading houses, and salaried officials selling products and collecting coins to return to the royal treasuries. The result was a monetarization of daily life, unlike anything India was to see for another 2,000 years. Moreover, chattel slavery became commonplace during the rise of the great armies and gradually came under government control. Question A. That's the real double meaning for the concept of undercover. Let's talk about issues of freedom, trust, and betrayal. Our modern population is surveilled extensively, from street cameras that capture our physical movements, to computers that record our every keystroke, to biomedical devices that monitor our interiors. Is freedom a realistic possibility today? And if so, what does it look like? B, when even your favorite prostitute may be a spy, nothing is sacred. How does the scarcity of loyalty impact humanity's quest for freedom? Anybody?
Mm.
I'm gonna give a call to somebody asking if she's a spy.
Wow. Okay. You know, I found, being that I, you know, was in the military, I found this to be uh, very interesting from the standpoint of military campaigns, how they go on so long. If you look at Vietnam, 20 something years, you look at the campaign in the Middle East, we've been there since, basically, since Desert Storm, and we go from Iraq to Afghanistan, so we've been there for 30 something years. People don't really understand that. They don't understand that we're very active in Bosnia. I mean, I've been to Croatia, those places. We're still there. News media might not be there, but we're there. How much of the coins, trillions of dollars, I mean, trillions of dollars, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, all these campaigns, how much money has been returned back to the United States government with the military industrial slavery complex? We're talking big time warships. We're talking dark money. We're talking so much money. And so you talk about how much freedom we have. I remember when I was watching the towers go down. I was in the uniform at the time, sitting up there looking on, big 50-something inch television, and people were talking about it as it was going on. By the second day, they was talking about we got to do something about it. And my first reaction was, do not have a knee-jerk reaction for so-called slavery, giving up your freedom. Then we had Patriot Act 1 and Patriot Act 2, and we're feeling the effects of those, born identity type situations when it comes to spying. There's no such thing as privacy. It's just an illusion. You have privacy nowhere. You're being recorded if you leave out your house 50 times before you even get back home. And you just might be going right down to Walmart. There's no such thing as private. I remember one time watching a Senate hearing when one of the generals, or Secretary of Defense, or one of them, was talking about your spy network in your refrigerator. You know, and they said that in a damn meeting, on national television. So people have this illusion about, I mean, the government can reach out and touch it, man. It's just, I worked for them for 20 something years. These people go around crushing armies. I mean, what you hiding your stuff for? You know what I mean? It doesn't make it, you don't have any, it's no, as far as using, I mean, people have used women, like they said, for thousands of years. They use, hey, check this out. They use women, little boys, and little goats to get secrets out of men. Sad but true. you know. I just want to know how you pick the goat out.
In Europe, they use to give you an idea. You're right, but they even have a guise of honor for that. In Europe, they recruited Jewish teenage girls whose families had been shot or kidnapped, deported, and who had fled, to groom them and get to have sex with Nazi generals and get information from them.
Exactly.
Josephine Baker, she's a hero of the resistance in France, but we all know what she did also. She hung out with them. She hooked up with them. They loved her. They wanted to meet Josephine Baker, so she would meet with them. We never asked questions, but we got a lot of information that saved a lot of people. The problem is that our society forgets we're not always at war. War leads to those things. It's not a place of freedom at all. And even those who think they're tough, they don't realize that it's not like a street fight. You don't get to shoot with the other guy. The guy shoots at you first. You cover for hours. You wait for reinforcement. You get shot at. You can't retaliate because you can't see the guy. Then when they don't have ammunition anymore, then you shoot. And in the meantime, you're passive. And the thing of war is that our society's like that. Now, everything's war. Everything's like Batman, The Dark Knight, and everybody looks at Trump like he's right about, this is a horrible world. It is not if you're a horrible person, but if you were raised in the idea this is a perpetual war. And the idea of loyalty in America, for example, it's very difficult to gauge because in Europe, loyalty, we still have the remnants of the old age. Like we feel like very stupid and neurotical guilt. That's why we're so calm. But in America, I notice loyalty is really relative to the money you have and how you can favor people. It's really a mob-like mentality, and people who are just good friends are very rare. Because in America, I noticed that in the workplace, the day there's some sort of drama around you, people you don't pay and who don't pay you still don't look at you anymore or don't talk to you like you go to your cubicle and everybody's silent, avoiding you. So things like that show you, I don't know, America is a country where the idea of freedom is fun because freedom is nothing without power. If you have freedom but you can't exert it, like the real problem, for example, of how white people look at African American history in America is that everybody wants Black people to have freedom, but no power. You can be free to work. You cannot be free to own land. No. That's power land. Everything that's powerful, each time, that's how rappers made such subversive music. They were showing their wealth. Oh, they're so superficial. Oh, look at them. They're not educated. I mean, Tupac was, but he was looked as a thug. And they were playing that role to piss people off because that was unacceptable that Black men that young by rapping would be powerful. Not just free. It's about power. You can be free as much as you want. I'm free to jump out of the window, but I don't have the power not to die out or get hurt. And I think people always forget in America it's about power when they say I'm free and they have a mortgage. These idiots at the Capitol, like they revolt for that. You've been powerless for 40 years and didn't start 10 years ago with Obama. Stop with that, But now you're rebelling because you can't get your candy anymore. The best way to make I'm going to be using a horrible word, to emasculate people is to give them candy instead of telling them no. Stand up, be powerful, which means be disciplined and be responsible. You cannot be powerful. Oh, I sound like Spider-Man. Stop there. I'm going to stop there. I was about to say that quote. I'm not going to say that quote.
Okay, Rick.
Gio, can we get free?
No, we cannot get free. Majorly because we are addicted to technology, which has been used against us. Do you remember when it came out? I guess this was after Edward Snowden made his disclosures that the government can turn on your phone and your camera and the audio and everything. And the only way to avoid that is to take the battery out, right? So what happened in the newer generations of phones? Suddenly, you can't take the battery out anymore.
Life is simple when you think about
it. Right. So,
yeah.
Short of an EMF, global, there's no freedom coming our way.
No, freedom, yeah, but not from bears. We'll be like, wait, no more lights? We rule!
Yeah, we it's really out of control. It's really fun so far. I really think nothing short of blowing up the world and starting all over again.
That's been done a few times. Okay.
Well,
we're on the 5th extension anyway, according to the Hopi. So we might get there.
Speaking of which, have you read the the report from the representatives and senators from Congress who had a pre-read of the UFO report. They came out. They're like, nah, it's not China and Russia. Stop with that. If they had that technology, we would be dead. And there's a guy saying, yeah, we learned. So technically, they were able to deactivate our nuclear capabilities. So I don't know what it means, but like when they travel around, it's like maybe for, encounter of the third kind, everything shuts down, which means I had a theory now. They're waiting for us to heat the world because they can't live. It's too cold right now. And once we're done with climate change and all dead, they'll come and live here. They're observing how far we are in this whole process because people are saying they're waiting for us to be mature enough to share their technology with us. I'm like, first of all, Europeans came to the Americas, and the Americas, the first thing people thought was like, hey, these guys got cool technologies. They must be good people.
That didn't work out too well.
That didn't work out.
No, it got really well. Everybody got along. Super civilization, no slaughter, no genocide, nothing. No, nothing happened. It was beautiful. Like this idiot Santorum said the other day, there was nothing when we were out here. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, there was only about 120 million Indians.
I know, but the guy's like, no, there was nothing. I almost said Jesus Christ because he's a Mormon. So no, he's not a Mormon, but it would be funny to say Jesus Christ was here. Are you doubting? You got to play with it.
Yeah, but it is, we're out of control. But it is interesting to think about this book, from the perspective of the last 5,000 years, where we see the invention of money and all that has led to. But I don't think we can actually fix it. But in my most optimistic view, maybe there's a way to start over. It may not be the humans that are here, because Rick is right. This AI thing, this robotics thing, is on the move. There's a good book by Harari called Homo Deus, Human Gods. That is really, really trying to project what our world may look like, and not so far into the future, given the path of the technology. And it's not, it's not inconceivable that if we think we're slaves now, the next step is just to wipe out a whole bunch of human beings. And when you look at what's happening with coronavirus, the unevenness of access to the vaccine, the way we sat and watched this murderous past president watch hundreds of thousands of people die unnecessarily. I try to avoid conspiratorial thinking, but it's hard sometimes.
Well, it's nothing wrong with just because it's a conspiracy don't mean it's not true. Sometimes people conspire. You know what I mean? So, it makes you think about, like I was talking about earlier, with the wages thing, the $2.11 that people are making and things like that. And, this state, South Carolina, tomorrow is cutting off the unemployment, federal unemployment. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you want people to go back to work. Have you really ever thought that the people who were working in these jobs are dead? You know what I mean? Y'all literally, did you ever think they might be long haulers, can't come back to work? You understand what I'm saying? It's like, what the hell you think? You're full unemployment is 4% in America. Hell, we at 5.6 in South Carolina. If you track the dead people, the sick people, people who went to the gig economy that's not coming back, that's doing something else, and being hired off or hired, they're not going back to the restaurant industry. That's the only thing that people are whining about. Hell, pay them $15 an hour. I ain't never seen, if you're familiar with Chick-fil-A, they ain't never had problem hiring people because they pay $15 an hour. And you go, if you're not familiar with Chick-fil-A, you go to Chick-fil-A, they got double to go lines, 40 cars deep. You're out of there in 8 minutes. You know what I mean? So they don't have a problem. So I think when you really look at it, you just have a bunch of people talking a bunch of rhetoric about what happened in the pandemic. People are looking at the world differently now that we're out of the pandemic. Workforces are looking at people. I got my next door neighbor who makes over 150K. People, his job, they're talking about, you bringing us back to work, we're going to get another job. We don't want to go back to work. We want to work from home. People have choices. Thank Trump for that. You know why? Because he stopped the visas, the H-2 visas. He stopped immigrants coming and picking fruit. So guess what? It's just simple economics, supply and demand. You got a big supply for workers and a big demand for workers and a little supply. The wages go up. That's simple.
But it's the funny stuff about that is that when they were talking about reopening the economy, I told my sister I didn't know the economy of the most powerful nation on earth relied entirely, it seems very essentially, on spas, hairdressers, gyms, restaurants, and bars. I was astonished because that's the only thing people had in their mouths. I was like, what about the rest? Oh, right. The actual economy that exploits poor people to overperform is still working out. It's called gig jobs, and they're the ones that are coming to our homes to deliver us because we're scared. They're not scared, okay, for whatever reason. They're essential, but not essential enough to get healthcare, a real contract, because some gig economies, some Uber drivers are told don't have a Lyft badge. Well, I'm sorry, it's no longer a gig economy. Uber, you got to pay them a wage. That's what England told them. Mm-hmm. England told them if they are not allowed to work for another service, they're your employees. Stop saying they're 1099s. And they were right. But what's interesting is that these jobs are not the essential part of our economy.
No.
But it's a way to tell people who don't earn a lot of money, you should be ashamed of yourselves of being scared. Go back working at the restaurant. Go back working at the gym. Look at all these clients you're missing on. It's your fault you're losing everything. Now, the Lakers, no, we're going to give them some money. They're a small business. Incredible. They got a small business loan. The Lakers, well, it's nice to see they're finally coming to terms with their level. Sportsman. I'm sorry, I'm being a bad fan here. But it's just, when people let that happen, and I think down the line is because it's something horrible, but, in 2004, when Bush was reelected, they did an interview of some terrorist sheikhs in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're like, well, we tell everybody, they always tell us, oh, but Americans are good people. They're not like their government. And the guy says, well, I just tell them, look who they reelected. So it's them. No one is innocent. And he was kind of right. We're not innocent. We are all collaborating to that system. And the problem is that it's dog eat dog. And it's a brilliant technology of power, which is let's divide people, not through ideology, that's cosmetics, but through wages and through jobs. The plumber, I know in New York City, people in unions hate each other from one line of work to another. The plumbers can't stand the wielders because they got into scuffles. It's to that point. However, you look at the wealthy, Jeff Bezos, everybody goes along fine. Trump, they get along fine with them because he's low class compared to them. But when it's odd because you were talking about AI, the reason why we didn't have any massive wars, I think over the past 30 years, and by massive I mean world war or regional wars, is because now they all use supercomputers to calculate the odds, and they're doing war games, and the odds are always the same. Mutual self-destruction assured. Don't do that. Don't go there. Don't move in North Korea. Do not move in North Korea. There's China and Russia. They're not going to let American troops at their border. People don't understand that, like, for example, talking about freedom, North Korea is not free because China and Russia don't want American troops at their border, but America doesn't want Chinese and Russian troops in South Korea. So it's like we're going to keep half of the population, 25 million people, living in a horrific country just because we can't get along, and it's all about power. So we're at a point where the real conspiracy, in my opinion, is that they're trying to hide that they don't know what they're doing, and they're just robbing the bank before it's too late. Like the 2008 email of that financier who was at the Congress, he was actually French American, which is bad publicity for us, but he said, "Oh, this is a castle made of cards. We'll have all our money before it crashes." It crashed before, so he lost some money, but they're aware this is short term. They know. And they know that because it's short term, the more needy we're going to become. Food's going to become scarce. People say, "Oh, they want to, stop us eating meat." We won't eat meat independently from liberals. It's not about that. Meat is not going to be edible anymore at one point. It's already this close from being not edible. I mean, seriously, fruits, vegetables have no color. No, you look at it, we're getting closer to a point where we're not starving, we're overtly starving, which is we're destroying our bodies through nutrition, which is insane when you think about it. Not because we're not having the right diet, because the whole industry went from farmers when we were kids to industrialized systems in barely 30 years. So what I'm saying is that they're engineering a new middle age for us, where we'll all be peasants, like uneducated, ignorant, believing in stuff like Q, and they can tell us what to do. And they don't even need a pretext. They don't need a pretext to go at war. They were like, "Oh, we're going to tell they have weapons of mass destruction." No, just say Saddam Hussein is a bad guy. That's enough. People don't care about war. What? You'll have a demonstration? You won't lose the election over that. People love wars. Because on television.
That makes me want to look at question 15 about ideas. Rick, why don't you read that one?
The popular education campaigns of the Axial Age led to mass literacy, the emergence of mass intellectual movements, and the spread of ideas. This was the first time in human history when familiarity with the written word was no longer limited to priests, administrators, and merchants, but had become necessary to full participation in civic life. Today, we have a lot of illiteracy, but there are also many among the masses who are quite able to read and write. We also have a plethora of other means of spreading ideas through the mass media. Do we have information overload? How useful is it from the perspective of the masses to have access to so much information and ideas? What are some ways in which modern humans might exercise control of messages they receive from the consumption of news, social media, entertainment, and marketing? I don't agree with you. We don't have a lot of illiteracy. We have people who don't understand smart stuff, but they can perfectly read instructions. And that was the same thing during the Axial Age. Think about it. The exoteric arts were for the masses. God, blah, blah, blah. Oh, civic duty and esoteric arts were for philosophers who said it was not written. So you end up with a system like today, the wealthy have unwritten rules. They don't need, there's a lot to say about literacy. It's they understand orders. They don't understand their own thoughts. Wait. That's a good quote. I should write it.
Yeah, my brother, one of my brothers said to me recently, and I don't know if this is accurate. He said there are 65 families that make up the 1% in this country. And that sounds about right. We know it's a small number of people. But you can imagine 65 families coming to agreement, about any number of things. But this axial age was interesting to me because, before the masses of people had access to reading and writing, it makes sense to me that the priests and the rabbis and shamans and all of these folks could project that they had this special knowledge and could reasonably convince people that there's a right and a wrong, and I know what it is. And since I have this magical skill of reading, I'm going to tell you what it is. It makes sense to me that the world could kind of chug along for so long on that basis. But, then when you contrast that with the modern era, where you're right, Rick, people don't seem to have a very deep understanding of their own thoughts or even good reading comprehension. Because the public education system has, looks like, intentionally designed to, kind of limit people's proficiency. But we're constantly being hit with information and ideas. And it just seems to me like it's having almost the same effect as when people couldn't read or write at all. It's like we still either don't know what to believe or can be led around by somebody like Donald Trump.
Well,
remember the Axial Age, they had books of reference. We don't have any anymore. Even Socrates always, even if he's criticizing the false literacy of the people he's talking to, he always refers to Homer. Homer is the 8th century. It's the beginning of the Axial Age. And it created literature. They refer to Solon, Lycurgus, the guys who wrote the laws for Athens and Sparta. Same thing in China. Lao Tzu, Confucius, Tao Te Ching, they refer to that, or Buddha. They always have a reference. Now, we have people who say they're Christian, but they mix that with their own ideas. They don't really respect the book anymore. They pretend they're Christian and like, did you read that passage? It says you shouldn't be doing that. And the person's like, it's interpretation. No, it literally says, I will slaughter you if you do that. and you see that in a lot of religions. People are starting to mix things up. Those super churches, what's the name of that guy with worse hair than me? You see that, hey, very thin guy he's in Texas, and he didn't give his prayer dome to people who were trying to find refuge during the floods and the hurricane.
Olson? No, is that his name? I think something like that.
I'm an old school European. What shocked me is
Olstein. Do you believe him? Do you believe him today?
Exactly. Well, what shocked me with that guy is that he says everybody's welcome as long as they believe in God. So they have Muslims, Protestants, Jews together going to his things. As an old school European used to war, we're like, we would never hang out in a church with a Protestant and a Catholic. The Protestant's like, no, we're friends, but we should not hang out on Sunday together. It's really deep. Like Muslims like, no, I'm not going inside your church. Seriously. Like a Christian cannot go into a mosque, even if it's not illegal. We're like, no, you can't go into a mosque, man. You're not a Muslim, man. Respect. And then seeing all these people forget their religion and think they're part of the same thing is an illusion. I mean, just look at the Middle East. No, religion, you can't just say, this is my Jewish friend, my Muslim friend. If you're a Catholic, you know that down the line, if God, your religion tells you, you'll go to war. It's the horror of religion to not admit that, and to see people going to that guy is part of this whole lack of reference. Why I like it, same thing with the far right. They used to be proud to be called fascists. What happened to that? They're like, I'm not racist. No, you are. That's your thing. You love that. Please be an enemy. Please make yourself clear to me so we can fight instead of you dancing around like, it's freedom of speech. Be yourself. Be a fascist. I'm not a fascist. That's fine. No, and nobody wants to have a reference. Everybody is everything. That's my point. There's no the literacy can't happen because you don't have a home place. You don't have people don't really have families anymore. Even the children of my generation, Generation X, they're all looking at their parents like they're idiots. My dad was never there for me. That kind of stuff. Yeah, your dad was working.
What is it that happened this week? The Catholics are mad with Joe Biden. What are they mad about?
No, they want to excommunicate him because he supports abortion. And here's the thing about excommunication. They did it despite the Vatican not wanting that. So I don't understand. What about anathema? I mean, Europe could retaliate to the bishop conference, say, no problem, anathema. You don't have children, so you don't care, right? Anathema is
What is anathema?
Excommunication for 7 generations. That means everybody goes to hell for 7 generations.
Oh, that's the big.
We did that to the Orthodox. Technically, Catholics, we all believe that every single Greek Orthodox goes to hell since 1054. They should have not told the patriarch was better than the Pope. That was not cool. That's a true story, actually. And the Orthodox did the same thing in reverse. And during the Middle Age, we had a Pope and an anti-Pope that were excommunicating each other. The problem when you excommunicate a leader, technically for the Catholic Church, that means all Catholics in this country are excommunicated. They cannot get confession. They cannot get
communion.
The Eucharist. Yeah, they cannot get anything. When they die, they cannot
get. If they excommunicate Joe Biden, that would apply to all the Catholics in this
theology.
country?
That should happen. I'm surprised journalists didn't pick it up. That's why in the Middle Age, when the Pope excommunicated the French because, hey, you're too powerful, the French said, oh, really? We have our own Pope now? Yeah, he's a real Pope. We found he was in the closet. Do your thing. I excommunicate Rome.
How about
Go ahead, Joel.
How about if I've read about that, but the Pope told the American bishops not to do it. They did it anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Biden goes to Rome and the Pope give him communion. That's probably what's going to happen next, and say to hell with all of them. Now, going back to the the literacy and the information that we're getting now. We're getting a lot, like you said, getting a lot of information, and it's kind of hard for people to sift through what is factual and what is true and what is, like Rick said, Q information. But I think, and Michelle, you said something as well, the education system has been, actively into this. I mean, you don't have how Donald Trump came about. You don't have civics in class. There's no civics. People don't know how the government works. I always get in these one-sided debates because you're not debating somebody if they don't have a lot of information. That's you just look stupid doing it. And so I stopped doing it. Well, what did Obama do? I say, okay, for 2 years, he had both houses of government. You got to have the presidency, you got to have the Senate, you got to have to write laws in this country. It's just plain and simple. He didn't have that, so he wasn't able to do much. People didn't seem like black folk, all white folk didn't understand that. It takes 3, everybody has to be in agreement. The other part of that is critical thinking. We don't teach. I mean, my brother say, this is why you got a bunch of people going around shooting each other. No one can think through a process, or you're handling everything with emotion. So you go and shoot people. So you have the critical thinking, you have no civics involved, and then you have a bunch of information that's out there that anybody can write anything and it gets printed. You know what I mean? And speaking of print, people don't go and read print anymore. They don't read print. You know, we're here on Facebook, which is a good, this is my first time. I spent more time on Facebook now since I left music. You understand what I'm saying? I don't go on Facebook anymore, you know, and so I think that that's where your problem is. I mean, think about this here. I have to
You're not
send
doing your radio? You're not doing your radio broadcast anymore?
not since the pandemic. They're gonna call me back, but I'm not pushing them. You know, I'm really I'm not pushing radio. I will be back on radio, but I'm not pushing it because, you know, in life you move on. I did radio for 13 years, but I read this, and Geo, she helped me do this when she helped me with my first undergraduate. Uh, it was called a paper called "Schooling in a Capitalist Society," which was, you know, they had it was a scholarly paper. It was very difficult to read, but anyway, it said that after 40 something years in education, you have a system that has three tiers in higher education. First of all, it said it didn't move poverty 1 inch. Okay, really. When being educated, going to college did not move the African American community or no other minority community 1 inch having an education from compared to the trillions of dollars that was put in it. We have three types of education. We have the community college and the state education for higher education, which you have your first line supervisor. The second one, you have your private colleges where you have your mid-level supervisors, and you know you might get a vice president too. You have your Ivy League schools that produces your Supreme Court justices, your CEOs, and your presidents and your politicians. And that's how this country is ran. And the other part of that is the bottom line is when it comes to education, is that it's not where the wealth is not where you get your education from. It's basically where you start at in life, period. I can go to Harvard. One of the 65 families can go to Harvard. Who's going to go the furthest? And that's basically how it is. It's where you start from. So if you can't pass on some kind of generational wealth, if you can't pass on something to your children, education is not going to help at all. And so I almost blew a gasket last week from, you know, the guy that wanted to sing Negro spirituals on Professor Stevens on the podcast on reparations the other night.
Oh, on Our Common Ground?
Oh my God.
Oh, wasn't he horrible?
I mean, this cat went on. Well, I didn't like the Obamas because they became too Hollywood. I didn't like him because I didn't like him because I didn't want to pay for female contraceptives. I just want the black guy to go up there, and I wanted him, you know, I just want to give the reparations to the HBCUs.
Usually BJ has very good guests.
Well, it was good to have him.
Somehow she didn't vet this guy, or
it was good to have him because he better not ever go to Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club. You understand what I'm saying? They'll rip him up. This is why I was like, this is why black men, young black men, sat on the couch during the election, because this guy, he wants to go up there and talk about Marcus Garvey. These people don't care about Marcus Garvey. They don't care about Harriet Tubman. They want reparations now, whether you're going to get them or not. But you can't say, let the NAACP and allow, you know, the church. Are you kidding me? The church? You understand? You're talking about the deacon that drink and goes after the woman in the red dress on the third row. You want that guy?
Right.
I'm sorry. I couldn't call in for that guy. I was going to get him point blank, you know. But you know, the bottom line is he was too old and his ideas was too old. Sit down off the couch. You've been in education for 50 years. Sit down. You know, somebody else need to have that spot. You know, George Mason inside the Beltway. He's in the echo chamber talking to everybody. Like, he's not out there where people have to go to McDonald's for their coffee. You understand what I'm saying? He's not listening to those people. He don't give a damn about those people. They can't tell him anything, you know?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
anyway, that's enough of that.
But look, you're talking about education, the reparations subject. I always tell Michelle and Gio, why aren't the French, British, and Spaniards and Portuguese involved?
Mm.
Mhm.
We're the ones who were kidnapping and pillaging villages to send them to America and made money in Nantes of France. The bank of slavery for the Americas was in France.
Well,
The Triangular system was, we made a ton of money. How do you think Paris went from middle-aged Paris with shit everywhere to this city? We didn't get the money from our land. We had trees,
well,
nice trees, and some coal.
but you know what? After reading, 5,000 years of debt, chapter 9, you know, I believe the elitists look at people asking for reparations and they have the education and they've been taught, a better history than we've been taught. They was like, we are not going to become the first empire and civilization in the world to give slaves a damn thing.
Excuse me, Europe gave to the Jews for the Jewish New Yorkers got reparations from the French rail system because we used them as slave labor to build a rail that would bring them to their death. And they got money. We also paid money back to people who were indentured servants during certain events in French history and Italian history. It's not true. But the thing is, these guys, I noticed something, white Americans are not educated. They're not. They live under a myth. And with that goes religious fanaticism, manifest destiny. There was nothing when we came here. We made this the greatest country in the world.
But I think, Rick, I think the question is when and how do Black people get reparations? Yeah, reparations is established international law, but when you try to tick off the cases where Black people in any country have received reparations for any reason, nothing comes to mind. Michelle. I mean, look at France and Haiti.
You know why? The French said the reason why. And they said it officially. They said it would be too expensive because it's too many crimes over too much time. And it's literally that. It's like if the Jews got $1 billion for 5 years or 10 years in Nazi Germany, plus 400 million people over 5 centuries, even 6, plus rape, mass rape, plus
right.
That's our GDP.
Well, and that's a way of looking at it. It's not if we ask the question, if you ask the question, do they deserve reparation? Everybody would agree, yeah, they do. How you get there, there's another thing. And then we have been, of course, we've been having a debate for 2 weeks about Juneteenth and all this other kind of stuff. I just tell people, I was like, okay, all right, we know about, Juneteenth. Now, tell you the truth, I knew about it, been knowing about it for years, didn't ever really celebrate it or anything like this here. Okay, so we got Juneteenth as a holiday. What does that actually mean? Well, in the end game, it looks like you admitting that something happened. And when you get ready to go to court, you get ready to settle something. First time you got to do is you got to establish that it really happened. So if you made a holiday for something, guess what you just did? You just admitted it. So where do you go from here? How do you get it? Can you get it individually? Okay, let's look at Tulsa. Can I get reparations for Tulsa? I do have an injured person over here. I got injured people. Now, how much? Who are the descendants? How much did that hurt them? You can get it that way. You can piecemeal it any way you want to. How about the veterans that came home from World War II that missed the GI Bill that put 1.5 million people couldn't even get unemployment of $20 a week during World War II? White men, they got what they call GI homes for either nothing or low interest rates. You understand? They got free education. That was the biggest advancement of anybody in America after World War II. African American men that served their country well for 1.5 million of them didn't get one damn thing. It was illegal. So you can start reparations from there. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a way to get to it. And then can you go to institutions? One institution that you can get it, my house, shouldn't cost 50% of the next neighborhood. So you're still in $350 billion of wealth from the African American homeowner that can be passed down. So there's ways to get it institutionalized. There's ways to get prove it, otherwise. So, should it, could it, can it? Yes. But you got to figure a strategic way, not a tactile way, a tactical way, but a strategic way to get it done. And the first step, in my opinion, in getting that, we just admitted that this did happen.
You forgot one thing. You're talking about long-term commitment. Look at tobacco industry. One payment. Please stop bothering us. That's what the government wants. Right. So my biggest fear with the reparations debate is that one morning they'll be like, we are going to give $100 million to the African American community. It's done, over, goodbye. No, that's not barely enough. Okay. Yeah. And that's my biggest fear, that you're right. Reparations just not just money. It's something deeper. But that takes effort. And in a country where people don't care, don't want to care, they pretend to care. No, Juneteenth is I'm saying something horrible. I call that the Watchman holiday, because white people, me the first, didn't know about Tulsa until we watched that goddamn show. And 2 years later, now it's a big thing. And that was like during the Black Lives Matter movement, when I saw corporations making meetings about that. I was like, 7 years ago, if I had said that, I would have been fired. What happened that all of a sudden Black Lives Matter is acceptable when you were saying they're radicals for years? This change in progressive mentality is so easy. Progressives are they're still racist, because white progressives think about every racist trope about Black Americans positively versus the racist negatively. They still think Black people are cool because they can jump and play basketball and dance. It's the same mentality. It's the same deep down rooted suburban mentality.
George Floyd happened, and Darnella Frazier, the young lady, took video.
George Floyd was 8 minutes and 30 seconds, but Trayvon Martin and that kid who got shot with a BB gun, nobody reacted. This is where I'm like angry,
that Black people have been talking about, seeing, experiencing, that exact thing for as long as we've been in this country, actually. But most of it was not captured on video for 8 minutes and 47. They said at the trial it was actually 9 minutes and 26 seconds, I think. So it was such a dramatic video that, I think it just made it hard for a lot of white people to pretend like they didn't see it, pretend like it wasn't horrible, to pretend, and it seems to have opened up some little window. Today's the day that Chauvin got sentenced to 22 and a half years.
Just 22 and a half?
Yeah, I don't know what.
Murder.
Oh,
well, okay. I'll be back. We're going to kill somebody for 9 minutes. I'll get 22 years.
Right. He'll be back in 22 and a half years to do it all over again.
But if I have 3 kilograms of cocaine past the federal border between Texas and Oklahoma, then I get life. Okay.
Right.
But that's why the federal government reserved the right to put him in jail on federal charges, which they're not going to run it consecutively. They're going to, they're getting ready to get him again. And, that's why I tell people, justice departments, they really matter. When you have, in the Obama administration had 280 police departments under, federal guidance and jurisdiction, you're going to see a lot of these type things that's going to happen. I mean, who is president? It actually, if people hadn't learned that in the last 4 years of that damn cartoon that we had, being president, it really counts. Who is president really counts, and people, what, no matter what you feel about voting or anything like this here, you better, I tell people that have a problem with voting, I was like, if you got a problem with the vote, just think about this here. Why are they spending billions of dollars trying to keep you from voting and all this other crap? It must mean something. You know what I mean? It must be a thing. You know what I mean? So,
There's an old joke from a French comedian, because in France everybody used to vote. Now we're becoming America. We're like 90% voting each election, even if we hated the presidents.
mm-hmm.
And the joke was, well, if voting worked, they would have prohibited it. So it's working now. And they saw it like, oh, it worked. Okay, no, we want to reform voting laws in Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, nowhere else.
Mhm.
In South Carolina, they were like, oh, this is starting to look bad. People are coming to your, there's a demographic shift, and people blame immigrants. Like, no, urban people are like, I don't want to work and live in New York City anymore. And they go to these places and they start voting. But, the real, you look again, the two Americas, it's no longer the South and the North, it's cities and the countryside. You look at the map of, even in New York State, a lot of upstate places voted Trump. But what really bothers me in all of that is how can hardworking guys who think they're tough vote for fancy pants like Trump, who, it's like Richie Rich. You're voting for Richie Rich, bro. You're not voting for the man that comes. What is going on with your brain? And I understood that later. No, they want to be Donald Trump. It's, if they were rich, that's what they would do. And you think about The Purge or Breaking Bad, all these shows that talk about normal people going insane if they're allowed to. Oh, that nice professor. No, he likes beating up people because we're raised with this glorification of violence. It's the Axial Age all over again. A real war, it's Sparta. But actually, the problem is that we live in a fantasy land. So if tomorrow there was a war on American ground, let's say the IBMs didn't work, they work perfectly well, self-technology. Let's remove all the great advantages the US military have. Let's say open war on US soil. I'm scared that most Americans would lose the war because in other countries, they go guerrilla. But Americans and Europeans have started being like, I don't think the difference, like in the Middle East, they die for what they believe in. We don't die for what we believe in. A lot of people go to the army because, hey, I want to get out of my trailer park, and the Navy guy was the only honest guy. Told me, I can get you out of here. The others were talking about serving my country. You feel that, they target young high school graduates, and there's a reason for that. And the Army's always done that. Every country, they always target the young ones. Hey, you want to do something about your country? Go die there. Yes, let's go. I get my bonus as a recruiter, and so we're still there. And America is so uneducated that people talk about the Second Amendment don't remember the first words of the Second Amendment. Well-regulated militia being essential to, I don't remember the rest, but it originally meant that a long-standing federal army should not exist. The army is under the sovereignty of the states. Well, you never hear people talking about state rights against the U.S. Army, but the U.S. Army became long-standing after the Civil War. It's so strange that on both sides of the aisle, people seem to not understand what they're talking about at all. And again, the reference, the Constitution, I remember NPR published the Declaration of Independence on 4th of July, 2017. And people said, oh, you're publishing an anti-Trump text. It's unacceptable. And NPR was like, that's the Declaration of Independence. Can you imagine? You're a patriot. You don't recognize your own Declaration of Independence. If there's something they teach you in school.
Well, if it's one thing that really takes my goat is when people flag wavers and patriots. That really gets on my damn nerve. You know what I mean? I see it everywhere I go, and I see it on houses, American flags, and all that bullshit. It just pisses me off. Because I never been a flag waver, but I stayed in the military for 22 years. You understand what I'm saying? You can be just as big of a, you don't have to have a big pickup truck with a 20-foot flag. And I see that crap all the time. You understand what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, won't you just be an American? If you want to be an American, have American, have the American idea. The American ideal is not on the right, it's not on the left. Is Statue of Liberty, and thank y'all for the statue. I never thanked the Frenchman for the statue.
Oh, but originally, they refused the first model.
Yeah,
it was the black woman breaking chains.
Yeah.
They said no.
We don't want that shit. But the immigrants, bringing the immigrants. I'm for open the border up. Open the damn border up.
Native Americans said the same thing. Look what happened. I agree. Immigration must be controlled. The white people were dangerous. Who brings the rape? Who brings the crime? Huh?
Yeah, but so this idea of a patriot, it's just, I don't know, it just don't sit well with me.
They're fantasizing.
Well, I don't mind the idea of patriotism. It's just that the more you know about the real behavior of this government, then the harder it is to be patriotic. But ideally, if we were participants in the democratic process and the government was truly representing the people's will, then that would be, to me, a good enough reason to be patriotic. That's not the world we have.
But you see, my point is, I'm being sarcastic. The patriot, the person that think they are the patriot by carrying the big flag, and beating the hell out of policemen on January the 6th and whatnot. That's the cat that I'm talking about. That is the type of patriot that I'm talking about. I'm talking about that guy.
I know that guy. And there's a podcast called How to Citizen. And it's this lone black guy who's trying to do his part to do what the public education system is not doing and teach people the civics that they need to really be able to participate. But our democracy is seriously under attack, and it's been happening for quite a while, but it's really at a feverish pitch now. So I'm concerned. That we're going to be looking at a very different situation soon. And when we started reading this book, Joelle, I really wanted to focus specifically on authoritarianism. And and Rick said, well, this book does, go into that. And it does. But I think we need to really, really look specifically at that question, because that's where this country is headed. And the people that are following behind that type of leadership, I don't believe that they genuinely know what that means, know what that looks like. Also, Leah Remini, do y'all know who Leah Remini is? Mm-hmm. She used to be on the wife on King of Queens. And then she did a documentary on A&E for a couple of years about Scientology, and which she grew up in, the cult of Scientology. So she did an expose on that. And now she has a podcast along with this guy named Mike Rinder is her partner. And he used to be very high up, like chief of security forces for the church. of Scientology. But they talk a lot about different cults, the Moonies, the Jehovah Witnesses, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And they talk about processes for like hypnotizing people, not the thing going over your eyes, you're getting sleepy, but just psychological techniques that authoritarian types use to actually hypnotize people. And that's what it looks like to me. So much is going on in the world that people are getting whipped up about shit that I think they don't even understand. Well, the crazy shit coming out of their mouth.
They call rabble, Trump was a rabble rouser. You understand what I'm
saying? I can't hear you, Joel.
I said, hello?
You're very
I hear
low.
you, but it got faint. Yeah.
Michelle, Gio, I'm gonna have to leave soon.
Oh.
45, yeah. Just so you know, I didn't want to interrupt you, but now we have an interruption. I'm gonna say it.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, it's just
okay.
my mom. She's here for 4 months.
Oh wow!
She's with you.
Yeah, 1 year of pandemic. Good. I said you come, and no. So she's going to Florida soon. So I'm gonna help her pack up. She's getting anxious about going to Florida because she sees a lot of Judge Judy, and she sees there's a lot of Florida people from there. And she's a little worried.
The Florida
I told her it's not a real court, Mom. It's not a real court. She's not a real judge. It's not. No decision is final.
Oh my goodness!
Tell her everything in America is play.
No, I don't know. It's my mom watches TV and she's like, well, Florida. I'm like, don't worry, it's the swamps, it's the gases. It makes people crazy. When I'm in Florida, I get crazy too. I don't know what happens. I start wearing a mohawk. West Palm Beach, worst of all. Okay. Near the lakes. Singer Island, everything's closed at 9 p.m. because everybody's in their 80s, so they eat at 5. So all restaurants and bars close at 9. And you're like, what? What is this place? Is this Florida? So yeah, I have to help her pack. I'm staying here. I'm staying in New York, but it was a pleasure, everybody. I want to see you soon, everybody. And yeah, next week before the 4th of July, the day we wrote a song we changed the lyrics to at one point.
Uh-oh.
You know the what's the Star Spangled Banner? I read the original lyrics that were changed in the 30s by the government. Okay, yeah. Because it says, and the slave will not be free, and the master will be happy. Right. Something like that. That says literally, and the free slave will be punished. They're like, oh, say, oh, really? So,
yeah. Crazy America. No.
It's the best country in the world.
Except for when it's not, right?
No, it's always the greatest. It's always the greatest. Fake news. Fake news. See, it's coming. It's coming.
Oh my
Take care, everybody.
All right, you too, Ray.
Bye-bye.
Have a good week.
You too. Bye.
Okay.
So, Joel, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I forgot. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, all right. Gio, any final thoughts you want to share?
Wow, you guys you were all over everything. But I was just kind of stuck on question 15 in information, and it made me think about I think it was Roger Ailes. I can't remember which media, ultra conservative dude it was who owned the television stations. But his whole thing was give them more information than they can possibly process. Give it from the left, give it from the right, give it from the center, because they won't be able to think their way through clearly to find the truth. And so I think that we're living in a different sort of information desert because the quality of the information is suspect. So for all the reasons you guys you mentioned, there seems to be an underlying theme of, okay, the people who are in power, we, for whatever reasons, are forced to now give these lower people, some access to the information, but we're just going to taint it just a little bit to make sure we're always on top.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm,
And
mhm.
in that same
Tainted or uh, that
right,
just the lack of diversity of ideas that's out there. So much of even the liberal media sings the
yeah,
same song, you know. And so many voices just never get heard.
yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
But can everybody hear me now?
Yeah, you're a little louder.
Okay. But I'd look at you were talking about authoritarianism and whatnot. This country has flirted with that so many times. You know, you know, but when you really, I watch a lot of History Channel and I look at a lot of World War II in color and stuff like that, and you get to see real live footage of Stalin, Hitler, and Mussolini. If you look at Trump and what he's doing, he takes a page. Evidently, he studied these people. He watched TV a lot. He studied these people. You can't tell me he studied these people. The same thing that he was doing during his presidency, you see that these same authoritarian leaders were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So and
Mm-hmm.
and right after World War II, there were a lot of Nazis and fascists in America. I think it was
Yeah.
Truman that told Kennedy, he's like, watch out for the damn Nazis. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So that as this country, if you're a white man or Caucasian man that's in his 70s and 80s, and you remember what the 50s were like, you want that. You want the Negro and them to be right there, and Trump represented that. To that demographic of people. I've always said, and I mean this. I mean, if right after World War II, I mean, the country is laid out for you. You own 90% of the wealth. You know what I mean? If you don't make it and you're Caucasian, I think there's something wrong with you. It's made for you. It is absolutely made for you. So I think other white folk, and I wish Rick was on here, that look at these people that's running around with tiki torches and the whole 9 yards. I think they're looking at these people like, what is wrong with you? It's laid out for you. Get up and get it.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? But
Mhm.
somehow or another, you got the oppressor wanting to play victim. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of mind games going on, and when I think about, the it wasn't a whole lot, but the black and brown people that actually did vote for Trump. Um, that's why I say it, I gotta try to understand.
I want to know what they got out of what was in it for them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
what is your life better? Because of this guy? You know what I mean? Did you get marked improvements in your life? You know what I mean? I never was voting for it. I mean, this guy wouldn't have black people around him to help him put on his underwear. You know what I mean? Because he don't trust them. Period. Had the biggest His family had the biggest lawsuit and settlement in the history of housing. Period. I like you say, I just don't get it. You know.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, we do our part to spread the word.
Yeah.
Joel, I'm so happy to have you on this book.
Oh, I love it. Where's Benita?
I don't know where Benita is. She
Well,
has dropped out, I think.
y'all see her. Just
She-
tell her I said hi.
Yeah. She has not been in the other group for the last book that we did, but she has been reading this book.
Oh, okay.
But we haven't seen her for a few weeks, so I think she's on sabbatical.
Oh, okay. Well, we all need to take that.
All right, you all.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
See y'all later.
Have a good week.
You
See you
too.
next Friday.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.